Hello, hello. I am recording today for day 154 and day 155 of my 365-day raw suspending disbelief journey. These are for September 23rd and 24th, 2024. And the reason I'm combining these two is not because it's a weekend, but just because they have been so jam-packed full of client work and scheduling and um, building out my automations and so on that am I quite literally do not really have a ton of insight into suspending disbelief on these days. Maybe suspending disbelief that I was able to get through all of the things that needed to be done. Beyond that, it has been just very go, go, go. It has been, I will say that I have done my best to maintain balance. I have, in between all of that, as much as possible, I have stopped and been present with my kids. I have, I rode bikes with the kids to and from school instead of driving. Um, I I know that when I reflect back, there's always more than I thought there was. So it is a good thing to sit and reflect back on these. It feels like it was all just work, 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 but I know that that's not all that there was to it. So Monday night or day 154, after staying up until about 1 a.m., doing an extensive, very, I guess not very complex, but one of the more complex automations and workflows that I have ever built. I was so wound up still at 1 a.m. that I was like, okay, I need to just read my book and wind down and not be on a screen for a bit. Usually I try to turn the screens off lots earlier than that, obviously. Um, but I read a chapter in my book, in the Big Leap book, um, all about Einstein time. And I may be naming that not perfectly, but the concept was brilliant. The concept, basically what I took away from it was it's time and our lack of it or overabundance of it, depending on where you're at. Um, the concept is that you create time, that it is not something external to us, and that we have as much of it as we need because we create it, so we can create as much as we need. And it was honestly a mind fuck to try to read through. I was like, what? It was so confusing to me at first, but I read through it and I kind of like it was a smallish chapter and I just allowed it to sort of seep into my brain as I then laid there going to sleep, right? And just sort of tossing and turning it in my mind. And what was really interesting was that during the day today, I was already applying the concepts. So it was the big thing is the mindset. If we're constantly saying, I don't have time to do XYZ, then we don't. Because we're choosing that, right? And this goes along with every other belief that I have. It fit perfectly. And so as though even though it was a confusing idea to my brain at first, it really did fit really, really well with my values, with my beliefs. And my values really are based around radical responsibility and always taking that responsibility for ourselves. And this goes hand in hand with like the law of attraction, really acknowledging that we are attracting what is in our lives, even if it's really shitty and we don't want to acknowledge it. And, um, we, when we're a little bit less conscious, when we're not taking that radical responsibility and someone says that we're attracting everything into our lives that is here and we have shitty circumstances going on in our lives, then it can feel like an attack. It can feel like, why on earth would I call that in? That's stupid. Like of course, I would never manifest that for myself. And we think that manifesting is only what we intend, but really it is every piece of our subconscious. And there are a lot of subconscious stories that go on that we aren't aware of. So, um, anyways, all of that said, one of my biggest values is taking radical responsibility, really owning the fact that everything that is happening around us in our lives, everything that we are experiencing, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, all of it, it is all manifested from within us. And if it's something that we don't like, we have the power and the ability to change that. And this is like I said, it's a very confronting belief system for some people who don't want to take that radical responsibility yet. But this Einstein time concept fit really, really well with it, because it basically was just that we're choosing this. So all day today, I was noticing myself. One of the examples in the book was a perfect one for me, and that's probably why I grasped that piece of it as quickly as I did. But um, he talks about how, we're sitting here working. Our kid comes up and says, "Do you want to play ball with me?" And we say, "I can't. I don't have enough time." Instead, we can choose to say, "I'm working right now and I'll play ball with you later." Or we can say, "I'm choosing to work today and I can't play ball with you." Or, we can reword what we're saying instead of, "I'm sorry, I don't have time," because we get to choose what we have time for. And I do always say this to people, to my clients, that we make the time for what we want to have in our lives. So if you want to join a program, but you're like, "Oh, I don't have time for that." No, you get to choose. You get to prioritize what is it that you really want to have in your day-to-day life. And the rest of it, you get to say no to. And this really was the same concept. So looking at it and really being honest, like, no, I don't want to play ball. I want to work on this project right now. And of course, you can say it in kinder ways than that without actually lying and saying, "I don't have the time," because you have the time. You're just choosing to do something else with your time. Anyways, I noticed myself today catching myself on my wording, catching myself on that phrasing that I was using when something came up. And also, not just rewording, but also um, sometimes making different choices, sometimes being like, where my natural, or not my natural, but where my reflex answer would be, "I don't have time, I'm working on this thing right now." Instead, I was able to say, "I'm going to finish this thing and then I will do that with you." And I would choose that, yes, I am going to do that activity with you. Yes, I do want to, because the question is always, do you want to play ball with me? Or, ball just being one example. But when we say, "I do want to, but I don't have time," that is just a straight up lie. And we're not teaching our children that empowered radical responsibility frame of mind either when we do that. So I really loved that redirect. I really loved that reframe on how we're speaking to our children, the words that we're choosing as far as what we're putting out into the world, what we're prioritizing. So it did give me that perspective of, oh, yeah, when I say I don't have time, just because my list is endless, as I always tell my clients, work will fill the time that you give it. So if you give it all of your time, then of course you don't have time for anything else, but you chose that. It's not that you don't have time, it's that you're choosing not to spend time on anything else. So I just thought it was a beautiful reframe. I think I probably have more layers to uncover and understand as far as the concept of Einstein time and always having more time than you need, and all of this kind of thing goes. But it fit really well with my belief system. So there was that. That was a powerful shift. Even though it seems really small, it was a powerful shift for me. And beyond that, I was able to complete the things I need to complete. I was able to, um, I was behind on emails ever since this whole website debacle happened. So I discovered that I was also behind on submitting my speaker bio and headshot and um, all of the information that I needed to submit for my talk that I'm doing October 7th or 8th. And I got that in today, and I still was able to serve all the clients that I was supposed to serve and do all of the tasks I was supposed to do and still spend a little bit of time being present with my kids. I do think I leaned too heavily into work today, and I think tomorrow needs to be a little bit of balancing that out. But I also have a new program starting tomorrow that I'm running, and the busyness is not going to stop anytime soon. So I need to choose what I spend time on. So, yeah, I hope there was some insight in that random babbling for you today, but that is what I have to share. So I will talk to you all tomorrow.